Hello there everyone, it's me EDJ here and we're going to continue on with Dovahadi's Rome series. So right now I'm about to look at episode 2, which is known as Rome Part 2, Unbiased History, the Roman Monarchy. Now I usually like to kind of give what I know about certain topic of history before I jump right into the video. This will be short because quite frankly, I know very little about the Roman monarchy. I know this, I know it began as a monarchy, and then it became a republic, and then it transformed into the empire that we all know. And I remember, like I said, I knew a little bit about the monarchy in that it had like about 10 or 11 kings, I believe. Again, I'm not entirely sure. I think I may have learned that when I was really, really young, but that was a long time ago, so yeah, they had kings. The kings weren't good, and then they decided to be a republic. That's really as basic as it gets. Even then, I'm not even sure I just said anything correctly. So I guess we'll find out for the most part. And yeah, that's kind of my spiel. I want to give credit where it's due. This is all Dovahadi's work. I'm just some dude who reacts to random history videos online, because that's what EDJ has become. And yeah, that's about it. Without any further ado, let's just get right into it. Let's watch Dovahadi's Rome 2, the Roman Monarchy. Alright, let's do this. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get copyright. I'm sorry, guys. It's not fun. What does that say? Paul. Roman. Dang it. Romans. 14 of
BC, the dream of Rome first took form. After a lifetime of injustices, Romulus now stood as the last of his people, and Rome's first king. His priority was to create the institutions from which the city could thrive. The monarchy would be assisted by the Roman Senate, assembled by all Trojan-descended Romans, now senators, set to guide and elect the kings of the city. Romulus pondered heavily on how he could make Rome better to live in than Troy, only to realize he had already done it, there being no woman in the city, for the gods invented woman to test the infinite patience of the Trojans, but the Romans were seemingly freed of that burden. Instantly, the news of paradise on earth spread through Italy. The previous kings from Abalonga had put much effort into partially civilizing some of the local barbarians, and when those heard of the news, they immigrated by the thousands. Romulus was at first unsure what to do about them, especially how they brought their wives with them. His best friend, Hostus Hostilius, advised having them all killed. It was good advice, but he had another solution in mind. He divided the populations into two classes: the patricians, the original fathers of the nation, and the plebs, the masses made to work the farms, serve as fodder infantry, and the most feminine ones as Roman sex slaves. As for the women, they served as breeding cows to ensure the future generations. The true bisexual heaven. It was Rome's first golden age. Things were going so well, Romulus threw a massive party, inviting all his partially civilized neighbors to show them the greatness of Rome. Among them the Sabines. The party was going well, until some Sabine woman glanced at Romulus and his patrician friends. Seeing such sexy men so happy as bachelors, they couldn't help but urge to ruin them. The plan was hatched. They conspired to get all the men drunk, then dragged the Romans out, raped them while unconscious, got all pregnant, then woke up their Sabine husbands, saying they had been kidnapped, only to wake up the Romans, ordering them to defend the mothers of their future children. The Romans, bound by honor, crushed the Sabines in battle, but granted them mercy, even integrating them as citizens, despite the Sabine woman's cry for more blood. They were now their in-laws after all. Barbarian woman, everybody. No evil greater than that. Even so, Romulus only lamented having lost his best friend Hostus in the battle. Seeking a resolution, Romulus allowed the Sabine king to co-rule the city with him, but thankfully the fool died in a stupid ritual or whatever. But he wasn't the only one whose days were numbered. After decades of rule, Romulus had grown wary. There's only so much injustice, tragedy, and malevolence a man can take. One day, while inspecting his soldiers, a huge storm emerged, taking Romulus with it, ascending him to live with the gods as a reward for his great deeds. Romulus's legacy in Rome was vast, but perhaps his greatest contribution was the teaching of no matter how shit, painful, and maddening things get, never give up on your duty. A philosophy that served the Romans well when dealing with their wives. I'm just kidding. It didn't help at all. In this spirit, we entered the post-Romulus kings, 6 in total, only 2 of which were Roman, and only 1 of which I liked. So let's...
Okay, so yeah, my intro I got a little wrong. There are about 7 kings, but then again, Romulus is more of a myth. Like, so even then, that's debatable if he was the first king. That's what I know. But according to Google, seven in total. So I was wrong. I said 10 or 11. So yeah, I was completely wrong. I'm completely out of my depth when it comes to Roman monarchy.
Let's blast through it. Seeking to appease the Sabines, the Senate elected Numa to be the second king. A complete religious lunatic, but a peaceful one at that, being the tool through which the gods detailed how they wish to be worshipped. Plenty can be traced back to Numa, the Temple of Janus, the cult of Terminus, and even Saturnalia. If you're a Christian, it means Roman Christmas, so that's neat. After Numa died of boredom at the age of 80, Tullus Hostilius was elected king, the son of Holus, and a total Chad. Simply put, he admired Romulus as his hero, hating barbarians with the fury of a billion suns. He waged war on them at every opportunity, even coming to blows with Alba Longa, long since taken over by barbarians, again. Seeking to avoid much bloodshed between sister cities, the dispute was settled in a duel between 3 Romans against 3 Albans. Having lost, Alba Longa was made a Roman vassal, a deal which the barbarian king immediately broke. Furious at the betrayal, Tullus personally led an invasion of the city, killing that barbarian king and ending his tyranny. Imitation really is the greatest form of flattery. Thankfully, he was also a pragmatist, taking the remaining non-barbarian population of Alba Longa and integrating it into Rome. Tullus would spend all his remaining years cleansing Italy of as many barbarians as he could, crushing Fidenae, Veii, and rebelling Sabines in battle, to his immense pleasure. Such was Tullus' hatred for barbarians, he forgot to provide the appropriate yearly offerings to Jupiter. For being far too focused in his bloodlust, Jupiter mortally struck Tullus with lightning. With his last words, Tullus lamented having forgotten his religious duties, and that he hadn't killed more barbarians. The fourth elected king was Ancus Marcius, grandson of Numa, and a proper admirer of his Trojan ancestors, managing to rest.
You know, this really reminds me like a lot with Chinese history. Sorry to completely change the subject, but yeah, there's a lot of mythology in here, and often when tracing like early like dynasties or kingdoms, like with the Chinese or with Egypt, there's a lot of mythology, like the gods, you know, made the first pharaohs and they were incredibly close. And then same with, you know, Chinese history, and then it becomes harder to find like what is real, like who are these first kings like really real. I don't think Romulus is real, or at least not as his story is told, because obviously there's a lot of mythology crammed in there, but it becomes really blurry, like how many of these kings were legit. And I don't know, I think that's really interesting that you find that a lot, right? Like with early civilizations and their beginnings. And something else I'm really liking so far is that you're really seeing, even in these events are mythologized. I don't think I'm saying it correctly, but point is, even with myth being so heavily implemented, you're really seeing the very violent side of Rome, because Rome was a very violent, very like confrontational society. Obviously, you don't get an empire that big being nice, you know, and we saw with the oversimplified video, like their war with Carthage, like the Romans, when it comes to like fighting, are just really, really all in, hard to take down, violent and I kind of like, you kind of even see a lot of that trait, that Roman violence and like fighting spirit, even in like these myths. I don't know. I just thought that was cool.
Rescue some of their ancient lost manuscripts. With them, he kickstarted Rome's love for architectural wonders, his greatest achievement being the extension of Rome to the port city of Ostia, connected with a series of aqueducts. Bringing such prosperity to Rome, Ancus lowered his guard, committing the greatest mistake of any king until then, trusting a barbarian. An immigrant, rich, half-Greek, half-Etruscan, socialist barbarian. Yep, checks everything. His name was Tarquinius, and mere days after being named the regent of his 2 sons, the king died. Using Ancus's favor to get the permission of the Senate, he kicked the princess out of Rome, seizing power for himself. Rome was now ruled by a barbarian. May Jupiter have mercy. Not long after, the princess sent an assassin to kill Tarquinius, shoving an axe into his head, Trotsky style. A socialist death to a socialist rat. Shame that his barbarian wife was there when it happened, covering the situation for long enough until her relative Servius Tullius took over. Now, it could have been much worse, as Servius Tullius was secretly one of those barbarians who had been forcefully civilized by then. Such a proof to the Roman people that at least some barbarians were able to repent. As king, he conducted a census of the city, assigning taxes and positions more fairly, actively defending the city from actual barbarians, personally invented the concept of a sentry, and later on building the Servian walls, further protecting the people.
Wow.
So concerned was Servius to live up to the Roman standards of a king that he did everything in his power to secure prosperity, even giving his daughters in marriage to Tarquinius' sons. Tarquinius the Younger, later known as Superbus, and Tullia Minor, a basic cunt. Both being the unrepentant barbarians that they were, they murdered their spouses, got married, and started plotting to usurp the king. Hearing about the rumors about Superbus and Tullia, Servius went to the Senate, finding Superbus sitting at the throne. He had Servius seized by his bribed plebs, murdering the king and throwing his body out to the stairs and into the streets, where his
Dang.
own daughter trampled over his corpse, unlawfully proclaiming Superbus the new king of Rome. Now you believe what I said about barbarian woman? This trope isn't going anywhere.
Crap.
So now we have Superbus seizing power by force, ruling with an iron fist, purging those who question him, using indiscriminate violence and oppression on innocents, barbaric stuff. Fast forward enough years, and Superbus used Rome's strength to claim leadership of the Barbarian Latin League, using their combined armies in a campaign against other barbarians, in an effort to make Romans forget that he is one himself. After endless battles for no good goal, the Romans were just sick of it all. 3 generations of barbarian rule will do that for you. Yeah, service was okay, I know, but the people yearned for true Romans to retake power. In their infinite patience, the patricians played along. Until this happened. This creature is Sextus, Superbus' son. Not only was he an insult, good-for-nothing, fat, ugly barbarian retard, but he had this autistic wish to revenge his barbarian ancestors from when their princess was kidnapped by the vile Trojan prince. Yet another barbarian lie that has persisted through the ages. Go watch Troy if you want more indoctrination. For his revenge, he chose to target the most beautiful, intelligent, and virtuous patrician woman of all. Luckily for him, he managed to eavesdrop on his cousin Collatinus while discussing who the best woman of Rome was, learning of his patrician wife, Lucretia. And the thing with Lucretia was that she was able to transcend her female limitations in such a way as to employ all the virtues her Roman ancestors fought for, yet remaining the height of feminine beauty. Convinced of his target, Sextus sneaked into Collatinus' tent, finding Lucretia doing her womanly chores. At first he tried to seduce her, which failed, then he tried rape, which also failed, then personal threat, another failure. Lucretia was at least 10,000 leagues above Sextus in every way. Nothing could break her Roman spirit. But then it clicked. After thousands of years of Darwinian evolution, the barbarians had finally adapted to their civilized rivals, figuring out the best way to hurt a Roman is to target the people closest to them. In her case, he threatened to tell everyone that she had betrayed Collatinus with a slave. Lucretia couldn't let his husband be humiliated like that. With no other choice, she conceded. The crimes committed on that tent compare only to the rape of Troy itself. I can't draw what happened for legal reasons, so let your imagination run wild.
No.
The day after the act, Lucretia was a broken shadow of her former self, but only on the outside. Deep down, her fiery virtue still raged with a thirst for justice. Dressed in all black, she got in front of a crowd of her fellow Romans, giving the speech of her life about how Sextus had defiled her, ousting the unspeakable horrors she had suffered. As a final sacrifice, she sudoku'd herself for all to see, calling for the sons and daughters of Rome to rise and save their city.
That is metal and intense. Holy crap. I love all the Skyrim references, by the way, like the blade here. As someone who played Skyrim religiously for years, like, I really like it. Even his name, like Dova, like the Dovahkiin. Like, sorry, my inner geek came out.
She dropped dead, to everyone's horror. The death of Rome's greatest woman enraged both patricians and plebs alike. United in revolt against the monarchy, they were led by what became known as the Zeroth Triumvirate: Collatinus, Lucretia's husband; Publius, a famous patrician, and none other than Lucius Brutus himself, then captain of the guard. Brutus personally led the revolt to the Senate, dragging the vile Sextus to the feet of the senators, telling them of the rape of Lucretia, the indignation of the people, and how the monarchy had been destroyed by barbarians. After years of concealed disgust, the senators unanimously agreed, proclaiming the end of the monarchy and the death penalty for the barbarian royal family. Now lacking a governing system, Brutus and the senators wisely agreed Romulus's wishes would be best fulfilled if Rome were to be led by meritocratic selection of patricians. And so the Roman Republic was born, the first and best democratic institution in history, led by the first 2 elected consuls, Brutus and Collatinus. Once news of the revolt reached Superbus, his army instantly defected, marching back home to join the Republic. Desperate to retain power, Superbus sent spies to Rome, disguised as ambassadors. They approached the senators, trying to bribe them for support, but the patricians denied their advances, reporting them immediately for bribery. Some barbarians say Brutus' own sons accepted the bribes, as if. Barbarian lies permeate society no matter the era. Now truly desperate, Superbus let his barbarity completely take him over, riding north to the Etruscan lands, promising the local hordes that if they followed him they would loot the greatest city on earth. Amassing a huge barbarian force, Superbus marched on Rome. Seeing the scale of the threat, Brutus wondered if Collatinus, being part barbarian, would come to betray the Republic. Recognizing his own weakness, Collatinus abdicated, going into exile, and having Publius take over from him as consul. At the Battle of Silva Arcia, Superbus' barbarian horde clashed against the Romans, their overwhelming numbers causing many casualties. Brutus, leading from the front, slaughtered countless savages, but being overwhelmed nonetheless. Seeing their commander sacrifice himself for Rome, the Romans pushed back, eventually routing the hordes and claiming victory. Superbus managed to escape, fleeing to the Latin League, gathering their hordes for yet another battle, only to be crushed a second time. He then fled to Cumae, where he finally died, thank the gods. Rome had once more been saved, but at the cost of some of its greatest heroes. As the consul, Publius, now Publicola, made made sure to return Brutus' corpse to Rome, where they celebrated the victory with the first triumph of the Republic, proclaiming aloud Rome would never again be ruled by barbarians. If only. But all's well when it ends well, and when barbarians learn their place under the Roman boot. Next time, we'll retell the tales of the early Republic, legendary figures such as Cincinnatus, Camillus, Flavius, and Scipio. It will be fun, and oh so very bloody.
Yeah, Rome, like I said, Rome is a very bloody history, but it's just an interesting one. It has left like such a big impact in like Western civilization, right? But yeah, that was really cool to learn about. I apologize for my quietness. I know usually I try like to pause a lot and talk, but like I'm so, how do I say it? Like, yeah, uninformed about this period in Roman history. Like, I had nothing to really add of substance. I was just taking it in, learning this, learning whatever I could from this video, and so that was really cool to learn. And yeah, I think Rome was really unique at the time, right? Like, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe at the time, it really was a lot of kings, like, monarchies were the big thing, but having a republic is just, I guess, very revolutionary. Forgive me if I'm wrong, you can correct me. Like, no, actually, there was a lot of those, but, you know, I still think, like, yeah, Rome must have been really revolutionary in a lot that it did. So that is super cool to learn, and yeah, that was really informative, and I'm looking forward to continuing the rest of this series. So yeah, there's like about like what 20 videos, so we've already seen 3, so we're gonna get up there, guys. Actually, yeah, that's all I have to say. Bye everyone.